In an old world of stone and smoke, there was a cave carved into the belly of a mountain. Inside it, people lived chained since childhood, not with iron around their necks, but with iron around their attention. Their ankles were bound, their wrists were bound, and their faces were turned toward one wall forever. Behind them burned a fire. Between the fire and the prisoners was a raised path, like a narrow bridge. And on that path, unseen hands carried objects, masks, tools, weapons, the shapes of life. The objects passed through the firelight, and on the wall the prisoners saw shadows. Those shadows moved. Those shadows spoke because the cave echoed. Those shadows argued. Those shadows promised. And the prisoners called it reality. They gave the shadows names. They built reputations from them. They judged each other by them. They formed tribes and loyalties. Some became important because they were good at predicting which shadow came next. When a shadow of a horse appeared, they shouted, "Horse!" When a shadow of a crown appeared, they shouted, "King!" And the others applauded. This is how a prison becomes a world. One night, a prisoner named Leon felt something strange, a silence inside his chest. He couldn't explain it, but the wall felt thin, as if the truth was not far away, just turned the wrong direction. He whispered to the man beside him, "Do you ever wonder what makes the shadows?" The man laughed without looking away. "Don't be foolish," he said. "The shadows are what is." Leon tried to return to comfort, but something in him had already cracked. And that crack became hunger. Not hunger for food, hunger for knowing. Days passed. The cave stayed the same, but Leon began to notice details. A shadow would tremble before it entered the wall. A voice would arrive a breath too late. Something was behind them. One evening, while the others slept, Leon lowered his eyes to his own wrist. He looked at the rope, not with hope, not with strength, with a simple thought. Is this really unbreakable? He touched it, and the truth embarrassed him. The rope wasn't strong, it was old. It had been rubbed for years by restless movement, quiet, unconscious, endless. It was already fraying, already tired. Freedom had not been impossible. It had just never been tested. Leon pulled gently, and the rope gave a small sound, soft, final, like dry wood splitting. He froze, listening. Only fire, only breathing. He stood for the first time in his life, and pain struck him immediately, not in the body, but in the mind. Because when you have lived chained, freedom doesn't feel like joy, it feels like danger. Leon turned his head away from the wall. His neck screamed. His eyes flooded with tears because the fire behind him was brutal. He saw the raised path. He saw the hands carrying objects. He saw the truth. The shadows were not lies. They were second-hand reality, a copy of a copy. And suddenly Leon's stomach turned, not from fear, but from shame. He had fought people over shadows. He had worshipped shadows. He had hated shadows. He had built a life out of darkness on stone. He walked to the back of the cave, where the air grew colder, and the ceiling dripped like the cave was sweating. At the far end he found a narrow opening, a way out. And as he climbed, the cave fought him. The slope tore his palms, sharp stones cut his feet, the air outside stabbed his lungs,
but the worst pain was the light.
When Leon crawled into the open world, dawn hit his face like punishment. He collapsed, shielding his eyes. He thought the sun was a weapon. He thought the sky was trying to kill him. He lay there shaking, and slowly, minute by minute, his eyes adjusted. First he saw blur, then he saw color. Then he saw a single leaf trembling in the wind, green like something alive, not like ash. He heard birds, not echoes, real birds. He saw water, not a shadow of water, but water that held the sky inside it. And he realized something terrifying. The cave had not been cruel because it showed shadows. The cave had been cruel because it convinced him shadows were enough. Leon stayed outside for days. He learned the shapes of real things. He learned that the world is not meant to be won. It is meant to be seen. And a strange peace entered him. Not excitement, not happiness. Peace, like finally putting down a heavy bag you didn't know you were carrying. Then Leon remembered the others. He pictured their faces turned toward the wall, and he felt something even heavier than shame. Responsibility. So he went back, down the slope, back into the wet throat of the cave. And here's the part people forget. When Leon returned to the darkness, he couldn't see. His eyes, trained for sunlight, failed him in the cave. He stumbled. The prisoners laughed. "Look," they said, "freedom has made him weak." Leon tried to speak. "There is a world outside, a real world. The shadows are not the thing." The prisoners grew angry because he wasn't just insulting the wall. He was insulting their entire identity, their status, their certainty, their sense of being right. One of the experts on shadows leaned forward and said coldly, "If you were truly wise, you would predict the shadows better than us." Another spat on the ground. "You went out and came back broken." Leon looked at them, at the chains, at the wall, at the fire, and he understood the final truth of the cave. A prisoner does not hate the jailer. A prisoner hates the one who reminds him he is imprisoned. Leon said softly, "I'm not asking you to believe me," but his voice cracked. "I'm asking you to turn your head." The laughter died. Something darker replaced it. Hands moved to the ground. Fingers found sharp rocks, the only truth the cave had ever given them. Because when someone threatens your world, you don't argue, you destroy. Not because they are wrong, but because they make you feel small. Leon stepped back. He realized you cannot drag someone into the light. Light is not a gift you can hand over. Light is a pain they must choose. And so Leon left the cave again, not in victory, in grief. Outside the sun was warm, but he did not feel warm, because freedom has a cost no one advertises. Sometimes, the moment you see clearly, you become lonely. And now this story stops being about ancient chains, because we still live in caves, not caves of stone, caves of screens, caves of opinions, caves of identity. We scroll shadows, we argue over shadows, we build our self-worth from shadows that flicker on a wall, and we live in rooms where we only hear our own voice bouncing back, and we call that echo truth. So here's the question Plato leaves you with. If you are disturbed by the truth, is it because the truth is cruel, or because you've been living in a cave so long, even the sunlight feels like an enemy? Tonight, you don't need to escape the whole cave. Just do one thing. Turn your head. Look at what is shaping your thoughts. Look at what is feeding your fear. Because if you don't choose what you believe, someone else will choose it for you, and the chain won't be visible, but it will still be a chain.